Beware the Batman is probably the second most forgotten Batman show out there, with Batman Unlimited probably being the most forgotten. Like seriously, who remembers Batman Unlimited? Maybe I'll cover that show someday if you all want it. This was the point where less and less people were watching Batman animated shows, with this show coming out 2 years after Batman the Brave and the Bold was cancelled. In this video though, I want to go through every episode of Beware the Batman and really see if it's any good, since I don't think many people have actually watched the show start to finish. I'll do it in a similar style to my every episode ranked videos, where I go through every episode of the show and rank them, but I want to see if this forgotten Batman show is any good, since I've never watched it before. But before I do that, you should definitely subscribe, and also check out my Patreon where you can get early access to new videos for as little as $1 a month. With that though, let's get into Beware the Batman, and we started off with... Okay, let's get this out of the way. I really don't like the CG animation that this show went with. It doesn't help that it's aged terribly. It honestly even looked bad back in 2013. Wait, what? Yeah, the show's only 11 years old and it looks like this. I assume because the show didn't have a big budget. Anyway, the episode starts with the intro, and you know what? It's a pretty cool and simple intro. I'm just not a fan of the music. We then see Batman come in and take out a criminal as they're robbing a bank, where one of the other criminals with robot hands comes out to fight him. I don't know how I feel about Batman's voice. Anthony Ruviva does a fine job, but it just feels a little over the top for me. Batman then ends up beating the two criminals after dislocating his shoulder, where we see Simon Stagg as Professor Pig and Mr. Toad attack him. That's one thing I'll definitely give this show, is that it uses different villains such as Professor Pig and Mr. Toad, but even then, they're basically just not their characters in this. They end up using a tranquilizer dart on Simon and knocking him out, as we then see Bruce get attacked by a thug. It ends up being Alfred, as it was all a test for Bruce, where Alfred criticizes his actions since it took him 5 moves to take him down instead of 3. Also, Alfred has a weird voice. I know this is meant to be a young Bruce Wayne, so Alfred would be younger too, but I just don't like it. It's strange. Oh shit, I just found out that the voice of Alfred is JB Blanc, who voices Caustic in Apex.
Breathe in.
Bruce ends up leaving as he says that Alfred's job is to protect Bruce, not Batman, but they then have a conversation again a little later, where we find out that Alfred was an ex-spy. As they're talking, they find out about what happened to Simon, as he sees a video from Pig and Toad, as they say that they're out to hunt down people who have stolen keys to the past, hopefully in a metaphorical sense. Bruce then suits up to find out that the two of them are after a man named Michael Holt next, as he quickly gets into the Batmobile to find him, where Alfred talks to someone over the phone saying that they need to meet them in person. We then see Pig and Toad attack Michael as Batman comes in to stop them. When he does, he ends up sacrificing his Batmobile to save Michael from dying, as Pig and Toad take Michael. When they leave, Batman falls to the ground, as Alfred meets up with the person he was talking to. We find out that the person is a Japanese woman named Tatsu Yamashiro, as she gives Alfred access to Simon's files and then leaves. Pig tells him to come to Wayne Manor to save Alfred and then destroys the phone, as he goes to the Batcave. He uses the Batcomputer to look into Simon's files, as he finds out that he and Michael were investors of Simon's company, but we find out from Pig that they're going to hunt them down, like they did to the animals when taking over the land. Oh, so Pig's just an animal activist now? I guess they can't have him being as dark as the character is in the comics, where he operates on people to make them perfect in his eyes, but they could have come up with something more interesting and honestly cooler. Anywho, they give him a 5-minute head start, and as the 3 of them leave, Alfred finds out that the whole place is rigged up with traps, where he decides that they need to fight back. Batman's coming in to save them, as they end up getting attacked by a bomb, but the 2 of them come out to get them as Alfred broke his ankle when trying to save the other 2. Batman comes in to help them as he makes Alfred take the other 2 out of the building, where he goes in to fight Pig and Toad. After fighting for a bit, they get separated by bombs that Toad threw at Batman, where he escapes as the whole place goes down in flames. The episode then ends with Bruce admitting to Alfred that he was right about him needing help as both Bruce and Batman, where Alfred says that it's his responsibility to protect him, but to do that when he's gone, he introduces Bruce to Tatsu, as she will be his personal driver and bodyguard. Hold on, Tatsu as in Katana? Oh no.
This is Katana. She's got my back. She can cut all you in half with one sword stroke, just like mowing the lawn. This is Katana. This is Katana.
This episode's alright. Doesn't do a bad job at introducing us to the world that this universe is setting up, but it just isn't that interesting so far. Obviously, it's still setting things up, but I really hope that it starts to get good in the next few episodes. Secret starts with someone named Joe being tortured by this poker face looking villain named Magpie, and she takes a few things where Batman kicks her, and hey, this is a neat line and also similar to the Cat in the Claw.
You just hit a girl.
No, I just hit a criminal.
Batman mentions that she stole tech worth millions, as they find out who each other are then fight. She ends up beating Batman, then leaving as he helps Joe, as Joe seems to not remember who he is. We then see Barbara with her dad Jim Gordon, and dog, I really don't like Barbara's design.
What the fuck were they thinking?
Anyways, at the table she talks about Batman, where Jim thinks that Batman could have possibly been working with Pig and Toad because he takes the law into his own hands. Jim then goes to the crime scene as he looks through Blackgate files to see someone named Lunkhead, which will show up later, and then finds one of Batman's batarangs. We then see Alfred talking to Tatsu as she tells him that she might only stay until Alfred's ankle's healed, and what the hell is this sound editing?
Making any decisions?
Hope I'm not interrupting.
I couldn't even hear him the first time I listened to this. I had to go back and listen to it again just to understand what he said because they put so much reverb on Bruce's voice. From there, Bruce talks to Tatsu as he asks how she's finding everything, where he gathers that Tatsu is more than just a friend to Alfred, since her dad worked with Alfred, and she refers to Alfred as Major in a certain way. Bruce confronts Alfred about this, where he admits that she is his goddaughter, where Bruce says that he doesn't like secrets. Alfred reassures him by saying that Bruce should test her because he knows that she's well and truly capable of being his bodyguard. They then go into the Batcave to find out that Joe's connected to a therapist named Bethany Ravencroft, as they end up looking at her in her office. When they do, they get distracted by some kids spray painting a wall, and when Batman throws a batarang at them, she disappears where Magpie's behind him and knocks him out. I was gonna say before that I wonder who Magpie is, but at this point it's just extremely obvious. They end up fighting after talking for a little while where she knocks Batman off the building. He catches back up to her as he questions her about Jim, where she tells him to catch up and find out. He ends up getting her in his grapple where she cuts the line then fucking dies? This honestly would have been an awesome twist, but no. She's still alive and then runs away as Batman asks Alfred to do a search on people at Blackgate. We then see Gordon as he goes to talk to Lunkhead to get some answers about a mind control experiment, where he reveals that he did this experiment to try and fix his mind. He ends up revealing that another woman did the experiment with him, as we find out that it was a woman named Margaret Sorrow, as Bruce finds out that information from Alfred, as he's going to go visit Bethany to hopefully find out if she's Magpie. Bruce ends up distracting her by using Alfred to call them and pretend that he's from the IRS, where Bruce investigates her office. He finds one of the things that she stole that he doesn't know about, as that night he goes to the psychiatric hospital that's on the name tag as Batman. When there, he of course runs into Magpie where they fight yet again, and when they end up stopping, she reveals that she doesn't feel pain when Batman offers to help her. When he does, he gets put to sleep by Magpie where she takes his belt. When he wakes up, he's tied down on an operating table with a device in his head, as Magpie reveals that it was designed by Joe to wipe memories. She reveals that she found a way to put memories back in, where she plans to get rid of him, and when she activates the device and runs away, Batman gets out. He finds out who Magpie is, as he goes into another room to save a woman from her, as we see that it's Cassie who's Magpie, and of course they did that bait and switch. They made it so obvious that it would be Bethany, but they decided to go, nah, we'll just make it the character that shows up once before this. Batman ends up showing her that she has multiple personality disorder after the experiment, since she volunteered to do it to try and get rid of her bad side out of herself, hence the early release. Jim then comes in and holds them both at gunpoint, where Magpie attacks him and makes a run for it, where Jim tries to stop Batman from stopping her, as he convinces him to let him stop her. She then finds the device broken, as he says that they can find another way to help her, where she attacks him and then gets hit into an electrical device which should kill her, but probably doesn't. Jim comes in to talk to Batman as he says that she's going back where she was, where Batman questions him if that's justice, but Jim just tells him that it's the law and he'll end up in the same place but not tonight. Batman disappears as Jim's talking, as the episode ends with Tatsu following Bruce in Wayne Manor, where he disappears into the Batcave, as he says let the test begin. Okay, that's a cool ending, but this episode's just okay. I just find the twist that Cassie was Magpie to be so shoehorned in, and it's literally just put in there just to be a twist on who the villain is, with literally one small hint to them actually being the villain. I will say one thing that stands out in these episodes so far is the fight scenes. They're surprisingly well done considering that I don't like the animation style. It's just really fluid movements and it looks good. He starts with people vandalizing a hardware store, and this line's pretty cool.
This is justice.
No. I am justice.
He deals with them and leaves, as Anarchy comes out and frees them, as he encourages the two to keep on doing what they're doing. We then get to see Bruce test Tatsu, as she seems to pass the test, and as Alfred tells Bruce that, he seems to think that he doesn't need a bodyguard. They talk about it over chess, as Bruce mentions that it'll take more than that one test to convince him that he needs her, but we then hear Bruce call for Tatsu's attendants in the trophy room. She doesn't find him in there, but finds the entrance to the Batcave, but doesn't get let in since her hampering gets denied, where she wonders what he's hiding. We then go back to the two people at the start as they're destroying things around them, such as buildings, light posts, and cars. Batman comes in to stop him yet again and does so pretty easily, and when he gets back to the Batcave, he tries to find out who they're working for, where he finds one of their shoe prints on the Batmobile. After that, we see Tatsu talk to Bruce, as she admits that she knows that Bruce thinks that she isn't needed, but she tells him to keep an open mind, And when they shake hands, she reveals that she had some kind of film on her hand which got his handprint. Smart little bastard, but I like that. Definitely a different way to overcome the problem she had before when finding the secret entrance. From there, Anarchy frays the two crooks yet again, as he gives them much better equipment to do what they want to do, as Bruce found out that one of the boots had pollen from a rare plant known as the chest flower, which makes them think that someone's playing a game with them and are using the two crooks as pawns. Speaking about those two, Bruce sees them get up in security cameras as Bruce gets Alfred to drive as he plans on using the Batmobile as a distraction. Alfred remotely controls it to make the two run away, as Batman ends up finding Anarchy and fighting him. As they're fighting, Tatsu ends up getting past the handprint scanner and into an elevator to end up in a private library. When in there, she finds a book that stands out, as she sees Gotham's wheelhouse inside of it, which coincidentally is the same place that Batman and Anarchy are currently fighting. We go back to them as Anarchy blows up the other station. When Anarchy says that they aren't the main bombs, he knows that the main bombs are on the gondolas, as he goes to stop them. As Batman goes to stop the bombs, we see some new tech of his which helps him get to the gondolas and stop the bombs, but as he's about to do that, Anarchy jumps him. Also, they really forgot about the detonator that he was holding onto and couldn't let go of unless he wanted the bombs to blow up in this fight, didn't they? Because he reveals it yet again when they stop fighting, but it wasn't in his hand during the fight. Anyways, Batman ends up jamming the device that he's holding onto, where Anarchy falls to his death? Again, probably not, unfortunately, but Batman manages to make sure that the bombs don't go off by jamming them, which works as we see that Anarchy's disappeared. I told you he wasn't dead, even though realistically a fall like that would have killed him. This episode ends as Batman sees Tatsu at the mills, which shows him that she passed his test. I'm not a fan of Anarchy as a character because it feels like if Ben Schwartz played a villain. Also, it's a lot like the Joker, but this is better than the first two episodes. I don't know, I just like this episode more than the other two, even though it's of similar quality to those episodes. I will say, seeing more development on Tatsu's neat, since I think that there's a lot of potential there, and I'm keen to see how that goes in the future. Even though this is a Batman show, we should have more focus on him. We start this episode off with Bruce Wayne speaking at a press conference about some AI generator that will help him with the world's energy, called the Cortex, and as he brings out a guest named Dr. Jason Burr, ninjas attack the conference. As they're leaving, Jason accidentally falls over, as Tatsu has to fight off some ninjas. As she's about to kill one of them, Batman comes in to stop her from doing so, while they fight off the ninjas until they disappear. Batman dips, and as Tatsu gets Jason to the car, we see Bruce in there as they figure out that Jason's been targeted, because he came up with the device. They then decide to keep Jason with them at Wayne Manor in the meantime for his safety. We then see one of the ninjas as we find out that they're from the League of Assassins, where someone named Silver Monkey knocks out the ninja, and then says to Lady Shiva that he won't fail her. Wait, hold on. I wonder if that sword that Tatsu was holding onto in the episode Secrets will have anything to do with this. I just wonder. They all then arrive at Wayne Manor as Alfred shows Jason around the place, as Bruce hired a security team to help them as well. Bruce then says that he has to go for a while, and this is quite a funny line.
Hot date. Well, as hot as a date can be at a museum reception.
What about Dr. Burr?
He's not my type.
Bruce and Alfred then leave as they go into the Batcave, where Bruce suits up to find out who's targeting Jason. He finds footprints in his lab where he gets attacked by the League. He fights them off until they leave with smoke and throw a bomb at him. As Jason fails to rizz up Tatsu... Wait, hold on. That's Matthew Lillard. I thought I recognized that voice. Batman ends up catching up to the League as they trying to get away on bikes, where he asks for answers as one of them says that he's too late. The Manor then gets attacked, as Mr. Reese is revealed to be working for the League, but another twist is that he's actually a Silver Monkey, as Batman's trying to warn Alfred about the attack. Alfred activates the failsafe, as Tatsu wakes Jason up and ends up making him get out of bed, since she knows that something's wrong. She ends up being right as Silver Monkey ends up getting in the room, where Tatsu breaks the door handle and makes Jason run for the panic room. Batman ends up getting to the Manor as he gets away from the League members, where we see Tatsu and Jason get approached by Silver Monkey, as we find out that she was a part of the League and then betrayed them. They fight for a bit until Alfred comes in with a bowler hat and a shotgun, which makes Silver Monkey run away. As Silver Monkey comes back to the room after they're gone, Batman attacks where Silver Monkey leaves the other members to fight him. We then see Tatsu as she gets Alfred and Jason into the panic room, where she closes them both in and then grabs the sword to stop Silver Monkey. Ah, so they did bring the sword back, that's cool. Silver Monkey then tries to get into the panic room with the explosives, as Tatsu uses the sword to make Silver Monkey stop and give her the detonator, but as she makes him deactivate the bomb, he uses a hidden shoe blade to get the jump on her. He then knows the sword is the Soul Taker's sword, and is surprised that it isn't destroyed, and when he tries to kill her with it, Batman stops him. Silver Monkey uses the bomb to blow up a wall and make a run for it, as he ends up getting away where Tatsu actually saved Batman by using his grapple. The episode then ends as Silver Monkey tells Lady Shiva that Katana's still alive, but doesn't tell her about the sword. This is actually a decent episode. I was starting to think that every episode of the show would just be okay, but I just like how we're starting to learn more and more about Tatsu throughout the episodes. The only thing really holding it back is honestly Matthew Lillard's character Jason. He's just written to be that annoying, overly obsessive character. I don't blame this beautiful man for that. It's just the way he's written. I guess what can I expect out of a kid's show? But I think even kids would find him annoying at times. Broken starts as Humpty Dumpty sets up a toy soldier on a horse, which shoots at some officers. They end up destroying it as they find someone trapped inside. Gordon and his men come out to look at it, where Batman comes in to tell them that the thing is a bomb, which will blow up if they try to get him out. Batman leaves as Gordon orders for a bomb squad, but we then see them underground trying to deactivate the bomb. Batman manages to ring Gordon to let him know that the man inside is known as Ice Big Joe, and that he's one of Tobias Whale's goons. Batman ends up paying him a visit, as Tobias seems to be a mob boss, where he doesn't know what happened to Joe. He leaves as he orders his men to escort Batman out, as he easily beats them all up and tries to find Tobias, only to find a toy soldier on a desk. We then see more giant toy soldiers that have been set up with people inside of them, as Batman comes in and saves the two from possibly killing each other. Batman then goes to Gordon and tells him what he's found, that there must be a connection to everything, as Gordon knows that Dumpler is that connection. He's the one that's actually Humpty Dumpty, where he got attacked by a missile as he was getting transferred. Batman figures out that Gordon was probably the next target, where he says that Gordon needs protection, but he rejects his protection and leaves. We then go to Tatsu, after she hasn't been able to find her sword, where she ends up asking Alfred for help, where he knows that she's been looking for the sword, as he shows her the sword and asks her how she got it. Of course we don't find out how right now, but we see Batman watching over Gordon at his house, as Barbara finds a toy soldier inside when talking to Jim. Batman knows that Humpty's inside, where toy soldiers attack him, and as they do, Humpty gets Barbara, and yo, that smile is actually kinda creepy, but I like that we get a somewhat creepy villain. So he ends up getting Jim and getting away, where Batman finds Barbara, as she tells him that he took Jim. Batman then finds out where Humpty could possibly be, after a bit of sarcasm from the back computer, and when he arrives he finds a bunch of toy soldiers and a castle on a table. When there, Batman ends up getting the computer to find a frequency to beat the giant toy soldiers' bombs, as we then see Alfred take Tatsu into the private library, as they read about the legend of the sword. Tatsu admits that she's seen the power of the sword, as it can suck the soul out of people, where she explains how she got the sword, and she did that when working for the CIA, where she got into the League and took it. She didn't want to hand it in to anyone because she believes it to be too powerful, hence why she went into hiding. We then go back to Batman, as he finds out that Humpty has an actual display going on at an actual castle, as two of the soldiers have Jim and Tobias in them. Batman ends up getting Tobias out and then Jim, as he ends up getting to Humpty, but when he gets to him he jumps off the castle where it's revealed to not be him. The episode then ends as Batman talks to Jim, where he knows that Humpty knows that he's lost the battle but not the war. This episode's alright. I just kind of wish that Humpty was more interesting as a character, since there really isn't too much to him, besides the fact that he was shoved right in the middle of a war and ended up being mentally broken. If you ask me, we should have got an episode focusing more on Tatsu and her backstory, since that stuff is the most interesting stuff in this episode so far. Definitely not bad at all, but not the best. Toxic starts with Simon's daughter Sapphire kissing her partner Rex Mason, as he's a security guard at Stag Industries. And ayo, we're getting an episode all about Rex and how he turns into Metamorpho? Hell yeah. Anyways, as they're kissing, there's a security breach in the building. As Rex goes to see what's going on, he ends up getting trapped in Project Metamorpho, as the intruder activates it with Rex inside. Batman then comes in and gets Rex, as we then go to Bruce and Alfred as Bruce wonders how someone got into the building, since Stag has state-of-the-art security systems. As they're talking, Bethany talks to him, where they end up deciding on a date, as she makes him go to a fundraising event instead. We then see Rex in a hospital with Sapphire and Simon, as Rex tells him that he wanted to tell him all about their relationship earlier, as he says that she knows that he would always support her decisions. He doesn't seem to be feeling well, and as he goes to the bathroom, Simon talks to Sapphire, explaining that the gases may have caused certain effects on him, since they haven't been tested on anyone. In the bathroom, he turns into Metamorpho after touching some steel, and when getting out of the bathroom, Sapphire realizes that this is Rex. He then gets shot at as he runs away, where we then see Bruce as he sees Metamorpho wreaking havoc in the city, as Bruce suits up to stop him. Batman tries to stop him, and after realizing that he's Rex, he tries to talk to him, but Metamorpho melts and falls into the sewers. Back at the Batcave, Batman finds out what happened to Rex, as he will end up dying if Batman doesn't find a cure to the gases that he was affected by. He tries to find out exactly what happened by looking through security footage, and ends up finding out that Simon was deleting security footage because he caused Rex to be in that so-called accident. As he finds that out, Simon tries to stop him, and whilst doing so he explains what he did to Rex, but Batman ends up getting away as Simon tries to get some men to shoot at him. We then see Rex as he talks to Sapphire, where he explains that he isn't in complete control, and that his emotions are out of whack. Batman then comes in to say that her dad's behind all this, where Rex gets shitty and fights Batman. Batman ends up neutralizing Rex for a moment with tasers, where Sapphire's an idiot and decides to touch him and gets knocked out by the electricity. Rex then uses the electricity against Batman and leaves with Sapphire. After Batman wakes up, we see Rex with Sapphire in the sewers as he tries to care for her. We then see Batman get to Stagg and interrogate him as he tells him that he told Rex what he knows and demands to get access to the project to cure Rex. He gets given access as Rex makes his way through the building, where Batman makes Stagg stall Rex, which he ends up doing and luring him back into the room that gassed him. When in there, they activate it, which seems to save him from dying, and as he talks to Sapphire about loving him for who he is and not what he looks like, he gets away. Sapphire blames Batman for all this, where Simon tries to as well, but Batman shows him that he has proof that Simon did all this and sent it to the authorities. We then see Bruce out on a date with Bethany, as he says that he had to blow off their date because he had to try and help with a friend's relationship issues. As Bruce gets a call and leaves, she ends up sending a message to someone saying that Wayne's hooked and awaiting instructions, and we also see that Rex is still alive. It was alright. Nothing amazing at all, but I think it does the Metamorpho backstory alright. Obviously a show like Justice League does it better, but this ain't bad. I just kinda wish that we got to see more of Rex's life before he turned into Metamorpho, but unfortunately we only get about a minute of it, so we don't get to feel bad for the character's transformation. Also, I gotta say, I really don't like Simon Stagg as a villain, and I didn't in Justice League either. Maybe it's just the character in general, but he's basically just a mustache-twirling villain, and it's honestly boring. Family starts right into the action as Batman and Tatsu are fighting League members. More of them end up coming out, and even Silver Monkey, as we go back 6 hours as Bruce is on a date with Bethany. We then see Tatsu waiting in the car as Silver Monkey shows up, where she fights him because he wants the sword. He ends up beating her and blowing up the car, as he tells her to bring the sword, otherwise there'll be consequences, then disappears. Back at Wayne Manor, Tatsu ends up telling Bruce what's going on, and how the League of Assassins are after the sword, and that the attack on his car was from the Silver Monkey. Bruce is annoyed because he's only finding out all this now, where Alfred backs her up by saying that she did the right thing, but he betrayed his trust and that he's handing in his letter of resignation. Bruce says good and that Tatsu should as well, and that they both should be gone by the time he gets back. We then see Bruce at Bethany's place as they decide to go to the Argus Club, as she wanted him to go there for a while. They go in as Bruce gets jumped by the League members, and Silver Monkey comes out as Bethany's revealed to be working with them. Tatsu then gets a voice message from Silver Monkey saying that he has Bruce, and to get him back she needs to hand him the sword. She ends up getting there, and as Bruce says that this has nothing to do with him, Silver Monkey shoots him with a crossbow, where Tatsu attacks them. We see that Bruce isn't actually dead as he wore armor under his clothes, where Alfred comes in and gives him his bat suit as he suits up and helps Tatsu. Now we're back where we started, as the two of them get tied up and the sword is given to Silver Monkey. He plans on using the sword against them, and as Tatsu mentions Lady Shiva, she then comes in saying that he won't take her down, since she has more power over the League. They end up tranquilizing Silver Monkey and taking Bethany, as Lady Shiva gets the sword from him. Lady Shiva then ends up using the sword on Bethany, and oh shit, I was expecting Batman to come in and stop her, but nope, she dead. Apparently not, since the sword keeps the souls, but she's basically dead. But when she goes to use it on Batman and Tatsu, Alfred shoots a rocket at them, which gives them the time to get out of their restraints. They end up fighting the League members and get to Lady Shiva, where she ends up getting out with the sword as she has archers aimed at them. Batman and Tatsu get in the Batmobile, as he takes her to the Batcave, where he mentions that he's aware about her connections to the League of Assassins. He used Tatsu to turn the League against themselves, as she cracks it since the sword's taken, Bruce is dead, and Bethany's basically dead. She then says that she's heard enough, and when she starts to walk away, he reveals that Bruce is Batman. He then says that he regrets what happened to Bethany, but they'll end up getting the sword back together, and that this was her final test and she aced it. Alfred then comes in to say, "Welcome to the family." Honestly, an awesome ending, but this episode's actually kinda good. We finally get to see Lady Shiva, which is a character that the show's been teasing since the start, and she does show that she's stronger than the villains that they've had to face so far. I will say that the ending's just really satisfying, where Bruce reveals himself to be Batman, and that Tatsu passed her test, and is now welcome to the family. She's shown throughout the episodes that she has what it takes, and to see her be welcomed is nice. Something else that surprised me is the fact that Bethany just basically dies on screen. I know that she technically isn't dead, but bro, her soul got sucked out of her body. That's basically death. This episode starts as Tobias and his men are stealing Stagg's weapons from a factory, where Batman comes in to stop them. He stops Tobias as the police arrive, where he talks to Gordon. He still isn't friendly with Batman as he tells his officers to arrest him, but Batman gets away. Batman goes back to the Batcave as Tatsu says that they should be going after the sword, but they don't know where the League is, so Batman explains that he has to stay in Gotham and help the people that need him here. She gets shitty since Batman keeps trying to find suits for her that could possibly protect her, where she decides to just grab a mask and a katana, and tell them that she still wants to be called Katana. We see Tobias with his lawyer, as he threatens Gordon to let him out of prison by midnight, as we then see Barbara get attacked by someone. Gordon interrogates Tobias as he doesn't give him answers, but says that he should have taken his offer. So without anywhere to go, Gordon decides to use one of the Batman logos that Barbara has to make a bat signal, where he asks for his help. Gordon mentions that the last person Tobias spoke to was his lawyer, as Batman goes back to the Batcave to find out where he is. They find 3 factories that Tobias owns, where they figure out that Barbara has to be in one of them, and as Tatsu says that she's coming, Batman tells her no since they aren't a team yet. They really backpedaled on this plot point in the last episode, didn't they? Yeah, the last episode literally had Batman saying to her that she's ready, but now she apparently isn't? It's very odd. Anyways, from there we see Barbara in one of the factories as Milo, Tobias' lawyer, talks to the ghosts of this place as they agree on a trade deal. They aren't literal ghosts, as they end up leaving where Batman gets into one of those factories. Just before entering, the ghosts attack him, and as he gets held at gunpoint, Katana comes in to help Batman, where the two take him out. We then see the officers leaving the department as they heard about Batman, where Gordon gets Tobias out of his cell at gunpoint. Batman and Katana find nothing in the first 2 factories, as they figure out that Barbara's in the 3rd one, where they move in to save her. As they take out the men outside of the factory, we see Gordon rock up with Tobias, and as Batman and Katana get in, Gordon and Tobias arrive. When they do, Milo seems to have fire abilities and attacks them. Batman ends up fighting him inside his flame ring that he set up around Barbara, but Katana gets a truck full of gas and drives it into him. Wouldn't that make him stronger since gas is flammable? Well, apparently not, as he passes out, and I like this moment between Batman and Gordon.
What are you doing? You're too good a cop to go down for scum like Whale. He used your family. You did what you had to do. They'll think I forced you to break Whale out so he could take me to the warehouse.
I don't want you to do this.
You're the hero. I'm the vigilante. Those are the roles we play. It doesn't change the goal. Protect Gotham. That's all that matters.
I like the ending, but the episode's just okay. Honestly, just kinda weak since Tobias was already a weak character in the first place. Also, who cares about Milo at all? Like, sure, he has fire powers, but he isn't interesting in the slightest. He's literally Tobias' lawyer. Another thing is the fact that this episode kinda backpedals on what was developed in the last episode, which sucks. Control starts as a man gets attacked by some kind of wire, and as it attaches itself to him, he gets controlled like a puppet to do something with the blueprint. We then see the same man walking down the freeway, as a cop comes up and asks him if he's okay, where he explains that someone named Cypher has his mind. From there, after Bruce and Tatsu are training, Jason rings her where they seem to have something going on, as she leaves to go have dinner with him. Gordon then lights up the bat signal, as Bruce suits up to see what's wrong, where we see Cypher attack again. He attacks a guard at Wayne Enterprises, and as Tatsu's on the way there to meet Jason, he gets attacked by Cypher. Tatsu sees flowers on the floor as Jason seems to not remember what happened, where Cypher gets away without them seeing him. Batman then talks to Gordon as he tells him about the man that was walking down the freeway, where they find out that Cypher used him to get blueprints of Wayne Enterprises to steal the Cortex. Batman quickly leaves to go to Wayne Enterprises, as Jason shows her a small sample of what the Cortex can do, by projecting her face into a building as we see Cypher moving in. Batman gets to Wayne Enterprises as he sees the two eating in Jason's office, where he notices that Jason's already been attacked by Cypher because of the mark on his neck. So when Batman moves in, Cypher grabs him and makes a run for it, where Batman and Tatsu catch up to Cypher. He says that if they try to attack him, he'll wipe Jason's memory, as he ends up leaving with Jason. Batman goes to lock down the building, where he tells Tatsu to keep an eye on Cypher and Jason from a distance, but when he leaves, she gets fooled into thinking that Jason got out, but she gets controlled. Batman locks the building down, then catches back up, as Cypher uses Tatsu to attack Batman, and as he's about to cut the wire attached to her neck, Cypher makes him stop, as it will apparently fry Tatsu's brain. He ends up getting Batman to handcuff himself to the railing of the stairs, as they end up leaving, where Batman ended up putting a tracker on Tatsu. Batman then gets out and chases after them, as he ends up catching up to Cypher as he takes control of a train. When he gets on the train, Batman decides to use his Batarang to make it go full speed, where Cypher lets go of the two and makes a run for it, as Batman, Tatsu and Jason get out in time. As Tatsu wakes up, she sees that Cypher got Batman, and after fighting him for a bit, Batman has the willpower to stop Cypher and release him out of his control, where he ends up grabbing Jason as a hostage. Tatsu then ends up kissing Jason, which seems to electrocute Cypher, and as Cypher lets Jason go, Batman uses his tendrils against himself. Tatsu and Batman visit Jason's hospital room, as Batman says that Tatsu made the right choice since her choice saved Jason's life, as the episode then ends later on, as we see Jason wake up apparently still in control by Cypher. That ending was so lame. But as the whole episode goes, it was pretty similar to the last one. I know what would have made this episode much better. Make Cypher more disturbing. Well, not him in particular, but how he takes control of people. That would have been awesome if it looked more disturbing when he took control of people. But honestly, in this episode, it just isn't interesting, since Jason isn't an interesting character in the first place. When Tatsu and Batman get controlled by him, they aren't being controlled for long enough to really care about it anyways, but it's just another okay episode. Sacrifice starts with a giant box being delivered to the League, as Anarchy comes in to steal it from them. He ends up doing so quite easily and taking the box, as we see Katana walk in on 4 crooks playing poker to get answers about where the League is. Batman comes in as well as they quickly take them all down, but the electrical box lights up in flames, and as the whole building lights up on fire, Batman and Katana leave the men and escape the building. We see Lady Shiva telling her men that they need to get the package by tomorrow, or their heads, and when they leave, Anarchy drops in to talk to her. He tells her that he stole the cargo, and that he will return it for a favour. The favour is to get into Gotham's research centre, just so he can get a lethal toxin, where she agrees. We then see Batman and Katana interrogate one of Tobias's men, where Anarchy blows up a bunch of cars below. He then projects himself onto a screen, where he tells Batman that he knows exactly where the League are, and that they're stealing a toxin for him as they speak. He blows up the screen, as we see that the cargo actually has a body inside of it, and that's Raish, isn't it? Well, I honestly don't know, but I bet I'm right, since why would the League want this cargo if it wasn't him? Anyways, Batman and Katana move in to stop the League, as we see them make their way through the building by knocking out guards and using their voices, handprints, and irises to get past the security doors. Batman and Katana get to them as they're about to blow up the final door, where they start to fight, and eventually one of the men gets the detonator and blows out the door, where Lady Shiva and the 2 men go in. One of them gets poisoned as they try to take it out, but Lady Shiva manages to get out before the gas affects her, where the 2 men turn into mutants. They end up getting out to fight Lady Shiva as Batman realizes that they need to get her out, otherwise they will all die here, where Anarchy's watching all this unfold through security cameras. Batman ends up convincing Lady Shiva to work with them, as we see the executive director of the building tell Gordon that she's been given approval from the mayor to destroy the building with the mole inside as she tells them all to leave. Lady Shiva tries to get into Katana's head, as Batman makes her stop, where all of them manage to get into the elevator before the mutants get them. Gordon ends up buying Batman some time by talking to the mayor, and as the 3 of them are making their way out, Katana stays back to fight the mutants, so Batman and Lady Shiva can escape. Unfortunately for them though, the executive director talks to the governor to let her blow up the building, where Batman and Lady Shiva fight as he manages to knock her out. Batman goes back for Katana as she's about to die, where he manages to knock out the mutants and save her whilst hearing the Modern Warfare 2 tactical nuke sound effect. Batman finds out that Katana got infected since one of the mutants scratched her, as he goes back into the room to get the antidotes, where he manages to do so and cure them. The building's then about to blow up, but Gordon manages to stop the bomb from going off, as the episode ends with Lady Shiva getting the cargo back, and wow, what a surprise, I was right. Of course it was Raish, but this episode's better. I'm still not a fan of Anarchy as a character, but I do like how he managed to trap Batman, Katana, and Lady Shiva all in one building, as they have to escape it and the 2 mutants. It's a cool idea for an episode, but the villain really holds it back. Also, it was a bit of a waste to tease who was in the cargo, since it was obvious from the word go that was Raish. This episode starts with some woman leaving a club, as Toad and Pig knock out her guards and take her. Yay, characters I'm not a fan of. We then see Bruce and Tatsu out for dinner, as he tells her to look around, where he points out all the crimes around them, with one of the workers stealing from a register, a cheating husband and a pickpocketer? Wait, hold on. It's technically not a crime to cheat on someone, but I don't need to tell you guys that it's a very immoral thing to do. Tatsu asks when you turn that train of thought off, where he says that you don't. They then leave the restaurant to see the woman at the start of the episode tied to a clock tower, as she then gets cut off the clock, where Batman comes in and saves her, and sees a note left for him. They then go to the Batcave, as he tells Tatsu to try and use her detective skills to find out who's responsible for the note, as she knows that the line written on the note is from the nursery rhyme Baa Baa Black Sheep. With that, they find out that it would be Pig and Toad, as they figure out that they're after a master and a little boy down the lane. Like in the nursery rhyme, guys! As they figure that the lane's a massive clue, where Batman narrows it down to 3 lanes. We then see Pig and Toad attack a fashion designer.
Who are you? How did you get in here?
Who are you, and how did I get to act? Yeah, that line delivery sucked. Anyways, they end up putting him into a net on a wall, as Batman and Katana find the fashion designer as he's trapped in a saw-like device that Pig and Toad set up. Batman ends up stopping the blades with Barney Splooge, as they find a note that says the end of the rhyme, as they see some residue on it. Katana goes to find out what it is by going to Jason, as Batman goes to the factory that's shown on the mask that the fashion designer had on. We see Batman arrive at the factory where Pig attacks him, where Toad manages to knock Batman into a bookcase, which falls on him where the police arrive. They make a run for it as Batman finds a blueprint of a parking garage under the Opera House, as they figure out that they're going to attack the runaway show at the Opera House. The 2 of them get to the car park to find explosives and a truck, with a timer, as Batman decides to drive the truck to hopefully get the explosives away from everyone, as Katana blows up a wall to get it out of the building. They end up doing so, but back at Wayne Manor, Bruce feels like they're missing something, where Jason rings Tatsu. She ends up talking to him as he tells her it's a rare residue of a toad, but they rigged it to be a residue that could explode when it gets too hot. Tatsu goes back in to tell Bruce what she found out, as Bruce knows that they're attacking the afterparty that started 2 hours ago, where they quickly get there and sneak underneath to stop the bombs. Batman runs into Pig and Toad, as Pig tells him his plan to blow it all up when 280 people get on the boat, as the temperature will be the same, and will cause the whole boat to explode. He then fights them but ends up getting trapped in the coils, where Katana comes in to stop Pig and Toad. She ends up getting Batman out where they keep fighting, as Batman manages to destroy the device in time. When he does though, Toad throws bombs at them as Batman stops the flames from blowing up the ship by activating the sprinklers, and I'm surprised how well they animated the water in this shot. It actually looks good. The episode then ends with Tatsu ringing Jason to see if he's okay, as he then offers her to come over for dinner. He then hangs up as we see that it's actually Lady Shiva controlling Jason, as he says that the Cortex will be ready before Batman and Katana find out about it. Yeah, this is just an okay episode. The ending was the best part though. I don't know, I just really don't like Pig and Toad as characters. I do like how they get close to killing people this time around though, with traps and whatnot, but besides that, I honestly find Pig annoying, and Toad is just Toad. He's literally just his sidekick. The ending is kinda cool, where Jason's being controlled by Lady Shiva, but it really doesn't make much sense, unless Cypher was working for the League all along, which they didn't confirm when he showed up. So one thing I find strange is that the gap between this episode and the last episode is 4 months. Yeah, the last episode was in October of 2013, and then this episode's in February of 2014. This wouldn't be strange if the show was separated into 2 seasons. But no, this is just one 26 episode series, so I find the gap quite odd. I guess as I'm filming this, I found out that Cartoon Network actually cancelled the show after that episode, and then just aired the rest on Toonami like the next year, so that explains it. But the episode starts as Batman and Katana see Lunkhead running with a car in his hands, as they go to stop him. They knock him out in 2 seconds, where we then see Magpie in prison, as Batman hands Lunkhead in. Magpie calls for him as he apologises for not seeing her for a while, but she gets jealous that he has a woman's sidekick with him, where they leave. Out of her jealous rage, she ends up escaping the prison by using Lunkhead, as she thinks that Batman came here to call for her help to get rid of Katana. We then go to Batman and Katana talking about Magpie, as she coincidentally robs a jewelry store, as Magpie says that she heard his message. They then fight as Batman manages to make her stop for a moment to tell her that he never told her to do anything, but she gets angry and fights again. Eventually, Magpie gets away after blowing up Katana's bike, where Batman tries to find out what Magpie's up to back at Wayne Manor. He then tells Tatsu to stay out of this because she's a target, where he suits up and realizes that she'll probably go back to the psychiatric hospital. After a little drama with Alfred, he arrives to see Magpie waiting for him, where she flirts with him, where he tells her that she belongs in a place that could help her, not in a prison. She talks about how her normal self is dead, but she then hears Katana's bike coming, where he says that he has nothing to do with it, but she attacks Batman. After knocking him down, Katana comes in where they fight until she manages to put Katana to sleep with her claws. Batman then wakes up and goes back to the Batcave, and wait, he just fucking leaves Katana there?
He's an asshole.
But when at the Batcave, he cracks out at Alfred for letting Katana come, where Alfred says that he was out of his mind. They then get an alert since Magpie robbed another jewelry store and left an address for Batman, which shows a broadcast of Magpie where he has less than half an hour to save Katana. He then figures out that Katana would be where Magpie's alter ego got quote-unquote buried, as he finds out that they're buried in an empty casket for her alter ego at Gotham Cemetery, so he assumes that's where Katana would be. Batman gets there to dig Katana out, as she's trying to get out below with the glass from the timer, and oh shit, Batman went to the wrong place. That was actually a neat twist, but let's not lie, they copied this from the 2010 movie Buried. So as Batman realizes that the casket's empty, Magpie comes in where he tries to get an answer out of her. She then gets angry as she wonders why he goes for Katana instead of her, since she apparently understands him, as he says that she doesn't. They then fight until Magpie uses her claws on Batman, kicks him into an empty grave, and tries to stab him with a shovel. When she does, Katana actually gets out of her grave, which is not far from where they are, as they start to fight. Eventually, Katana just starts making fun of her fashion sense, and as she asks Batman about her fashion sense, he comes out and helps Katana take her out. They fucking killed her, dude. But no, of course they didn't. The episode then ends as Alfred talks to Tatsu, where he worries about Batman suffering the same fate as Magpie. This episode got me really interested when Batman ended up at the wrong grave, but after that just kind of lost me. It's definitely not that bad at all, but I just wasn't interested. Most of the episode was kind of boring until the 3rd act. Magpie still kind of sucks as a character and is basically just a copy of Catwoman, but more mentally unstable. Fall starts with Raish, as he got his men to kidnap Alfred, and as he orders Alfred's ex-partner to use his sword on him, Alfred gets out of his restraints and makes a run for it. We then go to Alfred and Wayne Manor, as he gives Bruce his breakfast, where he's going to go test out his new cape, which doubles as a glider. As Batman lands, he looks into the language that's on the Soul Sucker sword, as he wonders where Tatsu is, where Alfred mentions that she isn't there, probably because it's the anniversary of her father's death. Alfred goes up to talk to her, as he asks if she's going to go see Jason's demonstration for the Cortex, where she says that she wouldn't miss it for the world. So they all go to Wayne Enterprises, and when there they find out that everything is gone, where Jason explains on a video that he gave it to the League, and then as they're watching the video that the place is rigged to explode. It blows up as we then get a flashback of Alfred, where he says to Tatsu's mother that he'll be there for them, as we then see Bruce find out where the Cortex is. They find out that it's on a Wayne Corp truck as he can track it, where he decides to let the truck go to the League, as he can stop them at their hideout. Tatsu believes that Jason isn't one of them, where Bruce believes that he really does work for the League, as we see Batman and the Batmobile watching the truck from afar. Jason finds out that they're being tracked as he manages to make Batman Katana lose the signal, as Batman tells Katana to get to the truck. We then get a flashback of Alfred talking to Thomas Wayne, and as he walks off to answer the phone, Alfred talks to a young Bruce Wayne. We go back to the action as Katana manages to catch up to the truck, as Batman gets there not long after. He tries to stop the truck, but when he does, ninjas surround the Batmobile and blow it up, as we then get another flashback with Alfred and Bruce, as muggers try to rob them. Alfred kicks their shit in, as we go out to Katana where the truck goes back into the hideout, as Jason gives Lady Shiva the Cortex. Katana fights some ninjas outside, and when she gets knocked down, Batman comes in and takes the rest of them out. We then see Jason with Lady Shiva as they follow Raish, as Batman and Katana make their way through the hideout. Jason ends up putting the Cortex in the device, as Batman approaches him. Jason's about to fight Batman, but Katana stops him and decides to kiss Jason, while she mentions that his eyes have changed colour after kissing him. They figure out that Cypher still has control of him, and when Batman tells him to turn off the Cortex, Lady Shiva uses the sword on him, and restrains Batman and Katana as Raish comes out. He lets Batman out as Raish wants to fight him, because he wants to make an example out of Batman, where Batman ends up getting his ass kicked. When he does, he gets a flashback of Alfred jumping a young Bruce Wayne, where he asks him how he will overcome unfair advantages, where we go back to Raish as he knocks out Batman. Alfred then comes in with a bazooka as he frees Katana, but Batman gets left behind, as the episode ends with Raish blacking out Gotham City.
Now that's a good ending.
I like it quite a lot, because we finally get to see a villain do more than just beat Batman for a moment, since Raish manages to cut power to Gotham. I just hope that we get more of Raish, since he's a real threat to Batman, even though I don't think his portrayal is the best version of him. Darkness starts where we left off, as Raish sends a message to everyone in Gotham saying that he will show the city's true colours, that he already has Batman. We see Tatsu and Alfred get back to Wayne Manor, as Tatsu questions him if he killed her father, as he denies it since they were best friends, and Raish just wants to turn her against him. As they argue, the bat signal lights up, but we then see Raish say that it's used Bruce to take over countries just to make their citizens into slaves. Batman tries to get out but gets dropped by Raish, where he offers him to join him, but obviously Batman says no, where Raish says that he will die then leaves. When he does, we see Silver Monkey in the same cell with him, as they end up fighting, but Batman beats him. Katana then talks to Gordon about what's going on, where they might be able to hack into the Cortex wirelessly, but they can only do that with police tech. She then says that she'll be down there trying to save Batman, and when Gordon leaves we see that Alfred was listening in. She runs through the plan with him, and as a last resort she might have to blow up their hideout, but we then go back to Batman and Silver Monkey. He says that there's no hope in escaping, but Batman ends up using the material in Escape to try and break the bars, while they end up agreeing to help each other escape, even though they're enemies. We then go to Jim as Barbara says that she can help with hacking, since she knows a lot about it, where he obviously says no, and this is quite funny.
But Lieutenant...
Call me Dad.
Dad?
Anyways, Jim leaves as Barbara takes his keys in his desk, as we see her drive a police van to only get stopped by Jim. He tells her to stop, where she obviously says no, because she's the only one that can help, as he reluctantly agrees. Batman and Silver Monkey get out of the cage, as Batman goes to stop the Cortex, and Silver Monkey just goes to escape. He ends up getting to the Cortex, and as he's reprogramming the Cortex, the League attacks as Raish is busy talking to the city's leaders. Batman gets knocked down, but when he does, Silver Monkey comes in to help him, as his freedom isn't worth much without honor, where he kicks Batman away to give him a chance to escape. So without any other choice, Batman goes to escape, where Silver Monkey stays back to fight Lady Shiva. We go back to Raish, as he proposes that he's the new leader of Gotham, and if they don't follow under him, Gotham will be in a blackout forever. From there, Jim runs into the Ghost when driving, where we see Katana and Alfred make their way into the League, as Batman gets back to the Batmobile to get another utility belt, as he then gets it and drives away. He tries to contact Katana and Alfred but ends up hearing Barbara and Jim on some frequency. So as he goes to help them, we see Katana and Alfred as they run into Lady Shiva after she took down Silver Monkey. We then see Batman as he helps Jim and Barbara, as Katana and Alfred get handed into Raish, as Alfred ends up getting forced to reveal that Alfred killed her father. She cracks it and starts to fight him, where Raish stops her by locking them both up in different cells, as Raish finds Tatsu's phone and rings Batman. He ends up saying that Batman needs to surrender to save Alfred, and this is honestly badass.
It's over. You want me? Come get me.
So Batman ends up revealing to Jim and Barbara that Batman set up a backdoor to the Cortex that he lets Barbara access, as he gets ready for Raish to come and get him. The episode then ends with Raish going into Blackgate Prison to let all the villains out. This is the best episode yet. Ra's just shows why he's a big threat yet again by actually kidnapping Batman and then both Katana and Alfred. To add on to that, the ending where he frees the villains to help him take down Batman is honestly cool. I do like the twist that Alfred actually killed Tatsu's father. It's just something interesting to add into this backstory, since he had to do what he could to escape, considering that he was going to be killed by her father. As I said before though, Ra's just isn't that interesting, and has honestly been done better in other things such as Arkham City, but you know what? This Ra's is better than in the DCAU. I'm actually not joking, I prefer this Ra's. With that though, I feel like this whole story will end with the next episode. This episode starts yet again where we left off, as the villains say that Ra's problem is only just his problem. He pimp slaps Toad, and as Pig's going to attack Ra's, Tobias stops him where Ra's says that Gotham will be the League's by tomorrow. The only thing he needs their help with is to kill Batman, and if they do they get their own section of Gotham to themselves. We then go to Batman as he's leaving the Batcave, where Jim and Barbara are trying to get a strong enough signal to hack into the Cortex. As they stop, we see Ra's give Tatsu an option to kill Alfred with the Soul Taker sword, and if she does, he will free her father's soul. She also gets pimp slapped as he tells her that she can set her father's soul free, as he wants his reckoning. We then see Batman in the Batmobile as he gets attacked by Pig and Toad. He stops them pretty quickly where Magpie lands on the roof. He ends up getting out of the Batmobile where they fight for a while. They stop for a little as he finds out what Ra's promised to the villains as Milo attacks him. Magpie gets pissed off at Milo as the two start to fight each other, but when they do, Cypher controls them both to attack Batman. We then go to Barbara hacking into the Cortex, and honestly, Jim and Barbara have a nice moment with each other, as he says that he's proud of her. They then get attacked by the League as they end up destroying the satellite in their van, where they get away. As that's going on, we see Batman say that he gives up, and because he says that he's magpies, the villains start to fight each other.
Almost too easy.
Shit, I was about to say that. Batman walks away where Tobias talks to him, where he admits that he doesn't like Ra's offer, that he can work with an enemy of an enemy. We then go to Tatsu and Alfred as Lady Shiva gives her the sword. When she's about to use it on him, she decides to let Alfred explain how he killed her father, where he explains that when the sword started to suck his soul out, her father let go and let his soul get sucked into it instead. He says that it's the truth where Ra's tells her that it's lies, so when she goes to kill him, she stops and says that Alfred isn't a killer. The League members are about to attack the two where Ra's has a different plan. He ends up revealing that Tobias has Batman. Of course it's all a trick since Tobias and Batman are working together, as Batman gets out of his handcuffs, where Tobias turns on Batman with his grapnel. Batman thanks Tobias for bringing him to Ra's, as he makes his grapnel blow up which knocks him out. We then see Jim and Barbara sneak into the League, as she needed to get a better signal as Batman and Ra's fight. He gets his ass kicked but seems to be doing worse than usual on purpose, as Barbara manages to get into the Cortex and overload it. Power comes back to Gotham as Batman gets Katana to give him the sword, since he figured out how to get the souls out of the sword. When he does, these goofy ass looking souls take Ra's and make him fall to his death, as the souls are set free. The episode then ends with Alfred leaving Wayne Manor, as he wants to fix the wrongdoings of his past, but says that if they need help he'll be there, and as he leaves the bat signal lights up in the sky. Okay, so they really won up to the last episode. I'm glad because this episode was actually good. The one thing I'm not a fan of with this episode is how incompetent the villains are with capturing Batman. They're honestly just much worse than usual, and kind of get treated like a joke in favour for Ra's, which yeah, don't get me wrong, Ra's is the highlight. I don't know though, we're over halfway in the series and there's nothing amazing about it. Definitely not bad at all, but nothing truly stands out. Next it starts with Batman and Katana training as Batman beats her. She stops as she says that she's hungry, but Batman seems to be a bit more aggressive than usual because Alfred's left. We then go to the mayor and hold on, is that CCH Pounder? Hell yeah it is. But her secretary gives her a file, and when the mayor throws it on her desk, it blows up as the two survive. Officers then arrive as Jim talks to the mayor about what happened, but she says that she isn't leaving without answers, as Harvey Dent comes in. The mayor suspects that he's doing it because she doesn't like him, where Harvey reassures Jim that their city doesn't condone vigilantes. As they're talking, the mayor says that she will leave, where she gets Harvey to escort her, where we see that Jim got Batman and Katana to listen into their conversation. They go back to the Batcave to look at the evidence, as Katana mentions that he's been more dark and broody as of recently. We then go to Jim talking to Harvey, as he plans on finding out who's behind the mask, because he thinks that he's responsible for blowing up the mayor's office, where Jim says he'll bring him in for questioning. Jim then talks to Batman as Batman says that he's being framed, but as they're talking, officers hold Batman and Katana at gunpoint, as Harvey ordered the officers to do so. Batman and Katana fight the officers and end up getting away, and when they do, Batman knocks out Harvey in the car park. Jim sees the security footage and orders his men to get SWAT teams after him, as we see Harvey wake up tied up in a factory. Batman's doing this to bring the suspect that attacked the mayor out of the light, and Anarchy walks out. Yay. He then explains that he bombed the mayor's office as they fight. Anarchy ends up planting proximity charges on all of them in the fight, where Batman figures out that if they separate too far from each other that the bombs will go off. Anarchy then says to Batman that he's going to escort Harvey into a business park, where Batman will surrender himself to the authorities, since Harvey's and Batman's charges are linked, and Anarchy and Katana's are linked. So Batman does what he's told, but tries to stall Anarchy by going slower. So as Batman's on his way, Anarchy reveals to Katana that this is all a trap to get the police, Harvey, and Batman all in one place. Katana fights Anarchy, and after holding him at the end of her sword, Katana thinks that he's bluffing with the charges, so she decides to get on her bike and try to get as far away as possible from Anarchy. He chases after her as we see Batman arrive at the place whilst trying to defuse the charge. As he's about to do that, the police arrive, where Batman tries to warn them about the explosives and that if they come closer it will all explode. He tries to get Harvey to tell them, but he double-crosses Batman by telling him to take him down, and Batman just annihilates them all. Batman tells Jim to call off his officers, but more come out as Katana comes in, where Anarchy follows and they all fight. Batman ends up cracking the code and putting all the charges on Anarchy, but when he does, Anarchy just breaks the charges and lets the bombs blow up. They survive the explosion, and even Anarchy does as he went into the sewer, where Harvey tells Jim to arrest Batman and Katana. Jim obviously says no since they saved his life, and ignores Harvey, where we then see the mayor as she tells Jim that she's funding Dent's Special Crimes Unit because the explosion happened, and because she wants to keep being mayor. The episode then ends with Tatsu ringing Alfred asking for him to come back, because they all need him. Honestly, another episode with a good ending, but the rest of the episode's alright. I'm already sick of Anarchy though. He's honestly just an annoying character. I get it that he just wants to cause chaos and destruction, but he's basically just a poor man's Joker, and isn't even half as interesting or entertaining. It's cool to see Harvey brought back into this universe though, but it kinda sucks that he's just a complete arsehole so far, so I wonder how that will work when he turns into Two-Face. This episode starts with people in robot suits destroying a grocery store as Metamorpho comes in and stops them. We aren't meant to know who that is, but come on, you can tell who that is. From there, we see Harvey blaming Batman about what's happening, since everyone thinks that the person attacking the stores is a golem-like figure. Katana questions Batman about if he could potentially be the golem, since he's being Bruce less and less. The two end up going out on patrol to find two men getting thrown out of a store, but the woman that owns the store tells Batman and Katana which way they went. They end up going down Crime Alley as Batman gets a flashback of his parents dying, but they run into Metamorpho and don't know that it's him. The two of them have to chase him down, and when they're trying to chase him, Dent's men come out to stop the golem. Batman and Katana go back to the Batcave to find out who this golem is. He finds out and doesn't say anything to Katana as they go to the abandoned Argus Club building and find the golem who reveals themselves to be Metamorpho. Batman stops him from fighting them as Rex explains his backstory to Katana, and after that he explains what happened in between that episode and now. He had to live in the sewers and relearn how to do everything and how to use his new body, and he now uses the Argus building as his hideout since he's sick of the sewers. Batman explains that Rex left too many clues because it made it easier for him to find out who the golem was, and when knowing that, he figured out where he'd be hiding out because he wants to protect Sapphire. Rex says that because of the publicity that the golem's getting, he'll have to move, where Batman knows that Stag's responsible for the men in the robot suits attacking the stores. So Batman goes to Blackgate and interrogates Stag, where he admits that he didn't do it but wishes that he could take credit for it. As Batman's out, we see more robot men attack out the front of the Argus building, where Katana and Metamorpho move in to stop them. Katana saves the two people that are stuck in the middle of all of this, where Metamorpho goes after the big robot suit, and when he does, he gets knocked out by its taser. Harvey's men arrive, which are apparently called the SCU, like a Special Crimes Unit, kind of self-explanatory, to try and stop the robots and the so-called golem, and after trying to burn Metamorpho, the robots attack the SCU. Batman and Katana come in to help Metamorpho with the robots, and as the three of them stop the robots, this moment's honestly badass.
Old Gotham is off limits. To you, to your men, to your boss. Understand?
The three of them leave as Batman offers Metamorpho a cure, where he decides to use these powers to help people, and he says that they know where to find him if they need his help. We then go to Anarchy as he drops into Harvey's office and says that they both want Batman dead or alive and should team up. He ends up leaving as the episode ends with Batman interrogating Sapphire about how he set up the robots to take down old Gotham, and he tells her to walk away before she becomes his enemy. She asks if that golem was Rex, where Batman says that Rex is dead, and if she does what she did again, she will rot in a cell next to her father. That was actually good. I don't know, Metamorpho is just a solid character. To be fair, it's hard to mess up, but the one thing I really don't like about this episode is that Sapphire was the one that sent the robots out to destroy old Gotham. That twist is just lame. I also really like how we're starting to see how dark and brooding this Batman could be with these recent episodes, and I wonder if it gets to a point where it shakes up his character after doing something out of line. I think it would be awesome if we saw Batman go a little too far and pull himself back to his old self. Game starts as Batman wakes up sitting in a chair in an empty room. He doesn't have his utility belt on him, but ends up getting out of the room to find Katana in another room, but they try to find out how to get out. They end up getting out of a room to fight Tobias, Jim, and the mayor, and this is funny.
Wake up, loser.
From there, Humpty tells them to check what's under the dinner plate, and it's a dead sailor, as they have to figure out who killed him. Humpty gives them all clue cards, but Batman gets given a blank card, so when they go to find out what the clue means, the mayor gets trapped in an egg as Batman finds out that the body's a dummy. Batman figures out that the dummy was poisoned by carbon monoxide and stabbed, as they figure out that Katana's card is the clue that will save the mayor, and does so. Okay, I really like this idea where all the characters have to solve this murder mystery to get out. They all get to move into the next room, which is a bedroom, where they have to stay on the lit floor panels or they'll fall to their death. Humpty makes them solve a case in that room as their chance to survive, but Katana gets the photo frame next to the bed, which is a photo of a mother and a daughter. They figure out that Gordon's card is the answer when Batman and Tobias get out of the room, and then Katana, as Gordon and the mayor end up in the bathroom. The two of them catch up as they go to walk into another room, which is a library. In the library, there's a gramophone sitting in the middle playing a song called Dead Man's Move. They then find out that all the books on the shelves are about bats, and as they argue about who's behind the mystery, the books fly out at them. There's guns in all the books, where Tobias shoots the door and leaves, while the mayor follows after him, but the door shuts behind Batman, Katana, and Gordon. Lucky for them though, their cards are in the room with them as Batman figures out the meaning of their cards, and that the mayor's eclipse card is the answer. They ended up being right, and as Katana's about to kick down the door, Gordon shoots all the ducks in the room to figure out that that's the way to get out of the room. We then see them catch up to Tobias, as he holds the mayor at gunpoint and goes into another room full of spikes. Tobias tries to shoot at them, but the others come in with him, and the room changes into a room full of screens where Humpty asks if he knows who the person is. The room changes again as someone's knocked out in a chair, where Batman figures out that this guy named Ernie was sailing a ship full of weapons from the League to Tobias, with Katana being the middleman in the CIA, where Batman and Gordon stop the shipment. The rabbit in the hat was Ernie, as he got sent to jail even though he was innocent, where the mayor prosecuted him, as they're all somewhat responsible and are the villains that they're looking for. Humpty comes out with a cannon as he wants to defend Ernie because he was innocent, and thinks that everyone on the other side of the bars was responsible. Humpty tries to make Ernie use the cannon, but he just wants to go home to his family, and doesn't do it, where Batman tells Humpty that he's just as guilty as they are. He then tries to shoot them with a cannon, but it doesn't work, as Batman runs after Humpty to fight him. As they are though, Humpty ends up falling into the room where the panels fall, where he falls through the floor. The episode then ends with Tobias being put back into jail for his involvement with the shipment of weapons, as Batman gets to know about Katana, since she apparently made the wrong decision in the library.
This episode's good.
It's just something different for this show where Batman, Katana, Gordon, the mayor, and Tobias are all trapped in one giant maze together and have to find their way out by solving riddles. Honestly, could have just replaced Humpty with the Riddler, but I don't mind Humpty as a character. He's kind of pathetic, but he has a creepy enough design that I don't mind him. It's just neat to see how the characters work off each other in a scenario like this, and to see Batman doing a lot more detective work in this episode to get out of his situation is great. Animal starts with someone named the Key using a zipline to get onto the roof of a building, where they extend their fingers to pick a lock and get in.
Ew, that shit's freaky.
Anyways, they use their fingers to get rid of the lasers, and then steal information off a computer which will help him get into any computer, as Batman and Katana come in to stop him. He ends up destroying all the tech and making a run for it, where Harvey and his officers are waiting for them outside. The Key hands himself in since he knows they will easily get out, where Batman and Katana fight their way out of their situation. They get out as we see the Key getting put into prison, where we then go to Batman telling Gordon that putting the Key in Blackgate was a mistake, since he'll easily get out anyways. Batman says that he should be in federal isolation because he's a massive threat, as we then go to Wayne Manor where Bruce seems to be a bit shitty and decides to go to bed. It ends up being a lie as we see him in the Batcave, where Katana goes to bed. When she does, Batman decides to go to Dent's office and hand himself in, and after Batman beats up his men, we see a little tease of the Penguin behind Dent. Why couldn't we have him in the show? Would be nice. We then go to Batman as Dent puts him in Blackgate, as we then see someone talking to Killer Croc, as he says they're going to take over the prison. That night we see Batman get out of his cell, but the prisoners have taken over the whole prison. As that's going on, Gordon finds out that Dent arrested Batman, but we then see Batman interrogate Tobias as he wants to find out where the key is. We then see Tatsu wake up as she finds out about Batman's arrest, where we see her go and talk to Gordon as he and his men are waiting outside of Blackgate. Katana ends up ringing for Barbara's help as she makes her way in, but we honestly see a cool fight scene of Batman in the elevator.
I'm surprised with how well it's done. It actually looks good.
We then see the Key tied down as men are trying to help him get his restraints off, where Batman comes in to stop them, but Killer Croc comes out to stop him.
I don't know about you all, but this Killer Croc design ain't it. It's too much like the Lizard for me, even though they're similar characters, like in design, but You gotta differentiate them a bit. I do like the voice though, it's something different.
The two of them talk for a bit, as Killer Croc's using the key as his own toy to get what he wants, as Croc proposes a game for him to get the key back, as one of the men knocks Batman out. Outside of the prison, Harvey gets permission to do what he wants, as the current mayor's on leave, but we go back to Batman as he gets thrown into a makeshift boxing ring, as he has to fight someone named Matatoa. Batman ends up beating them where he has to fight Croc, and after getting his ass kicked for a bit, he figures out a way to beat Croc by targeting his bruise spots. He ends up doing so and then beats the absolute shit out of him, where Katana stops him and damn, that's savage as fuck.
Mans just went all out on Croc, and it's awesome.
As they leave, Batman gets the key to cooperate with them, and as the other inmates are about to fight, the officers break in. The officers get control of Blackgate as Gordon tells Batman about it, and they end up leaving as Croc escapes Blackgate through the sewers. The episode then ends with Alfred returning to Wayne Manor as he greets Bruce.
If you ask me, this episode's the best yet.
The only real problem I'm noticing is that the show's bringing in more well-known villains so late into the show, which is unfortunate. But since they're bringing them in and doing well with them, I think it works. Croc gets his time to shine in this episode as a big threat to Batman, but honestly, besides from the third act being pretty good, the rest of the episode's just alright. I do think it's neat that we see Batman hand himself in, just so he can get to the key in Blackgate, and shows that Batman will do what he needs to, just to do what he thinks needs to be done. We start this episode as Katana's fighting Pig and Toad, where they end up gassing her and getting away, as we see Batman having a nightmare where he's fighting Croc, and then we see a glimpse of Man-Bat in his eyes.
Hey, that's pretty cool.
Bruce wakes up and blends himself a drink, where Alfred tells him to go see some friends, as Bruce said that he only had one friend, but he left. Alfred mentions that he isn't the reason why he left, but he came back as promised. He then says that he'll tell him what happened in time, but they need to not worry about him. Bruce mentions that he's worried about what will happen if he puts the suit back on, as Alfred tells him that he doesn't need to since Katana can do those things for him. We then see Bruce out with Harvey as he needs help with his campaign to become mayor, and asks Bruce for funding. He says that he doesn't know, where he notices that the man with him, being Dane Lislow, does a lot of training in a certain type of martial arts, where Bruce decides to ask if he's studied Savate. We then go to Katana, she's training Barbara to fight, because if she's going to help her with the computer stuff, she needs to learn how to defend herself. She then gives her the name Oracle, and I see what you did there. You set that name up early on with Bruce's access code, just so Barbara would use it herself. Cheeky. Back at dinner though, Bruce and Dane seem to be getting along quite well, where Harvey brings the conversation back to his campaign. When he does, Bruce sees Man-Bat running off a building. So Bruce excuses himself, and this is funny.
Dinner's on me.
What's your most expensive dessert?
He ends up running out of the restaurant to follow Man-Bat, and when he loses him, Man-Bat attacks him. Bruce fends him off as Man-Bat flies away, and when telling Katana and Alfred about it, they think that he's just seeing something different to what actually attacked him. Bruce says that Batman needs to get back out there, so they suit up because they think that Pig and Toad are connected to it. When arriving at a factory, Man-Bat attacks them, and when Man-Bat tries to fly away, Batman grapples himself onto Man-Bat, where he disconnects the two devices on his neck. They end up falling back down where Katana is, as Pig and Toad try to stop them from leaving since Man-Bat's their so-called pet. When they do, the SCU try to stop Pig and Toad but fail, as they get away, where Batman and Katana get away with Man-Bat. They take him to the Batcave where Man-Bat ends up talking to them because the devices are off his neck, where he explains that he was Pig and Toad's first victim. He was a forensic scientist working on bats until Pig and Toad attacked him, but they made him inject his serum into himself. Pig uses the devices to control his mind and body just so he can rob chemical plants, because Pig wants to make an animal army to take over. Man-Bat agrees to help them take down Pig and Toad, but we then see them as they're about to use some serum on 3 women. Batman breaks the serum and breaks in to stop them, as Katana and Man-Bat free the hostages. They end up doing so where Toad ends up chasing after them, whilst Batman fights Pig. Katana ends up handing the hostages into the police, where Toad ends up putting the devices back on a Man-Bat and knocking Katana out. We go back to Batman and Pig as Batman knocks him out, but when he does, Man-Bat grabs him and Toad walks in with Katana, as they plan to use the serum on her. Batman ends up making Man-Bat crash and takes the devices off him, where Pig and Toad do a fake wedding for Toad and Katana, as Batman uses the devices on Pig and Toad to make them sit down and surrender. They get handed into the police as Batman talks to Man-Bat and says that he should keep doing his research to find a cure, but the episode ends with Bruce and Dane sparring each other, as he gives Dent the funding he wants for his campaign. Bruce explains to Alfred that Dane reminds him of himself, that he needs to keep his friends close but his enemies closer, referencing Dent. This is alright. Honestly, just a massive downgrade from the last episode. I actually don't mind Man-Bat's design sometimes, but when he's just standing out in the open with his full body, he looks quite goofy. In some shots, Man-Bat actually looks really cool, which is a shame. One thing I do want to say though is that they actually managed to do a bit more with Pig and Toad this time around, with the whole formula and whatnot, which is quite neat, but I'm still not a fan of them as characters. This episode starts with the man running to find Bruce Wayne, as two other men follow behind him and tranquilize him. As he gets knocked out, he tells Bruce to tell Ava Kirk that her father's still alive, as the men disappear. Batman and Katana go to the Batcave, as they find out that the man was talking about Ava's father, and apparently Bruce's father was friends with her father. Batman then decides to see Ava as Bruce, as two people come in after them, where Katana tries to stop them. She ends up doing so as she sees a third person running to them, but they end up getting into the building that Ava and Bruce is in, where Bruce fights them. One of the other men disintegrates the one Bruce is fighting, and then disappears as apparently something happened with the man Katana was fighting. From there, Bruce takes Ava to Wayne Manor to question her about why the man would have mentioned her father still being alive, and recommends that she stays at Wayne Manor for her safety. They seem to be hitting it off, as Batman and Katana figure out that the scientist worked for a weather research company, and that they acquired a factory near the docks as the two go investigate it. They find a truck full of the men, as they get disintegrated by one of the other men, where Batman and Katana fight him. Batman beats him and finds out that it was Paul Kirk behind the mask, as he's been an undercover operative under the name Manhunter. He ended up getting shot by some Arrow on a mission, where a doctor from the council used his DNA to exploit it by creating robot copies of him that will follow their orders, and the scientist was the one that let Paul out. The Manhunters then attack Wayne Manor and get to Ava, where we then go back to Batman, Katana, and Paul, as one of the robots tell him that they have his daughter. They then team up to try and save Ava and stop the robots, as they have Ava in a truck in the middle of a bridge, as Paul asks for his daughter. The robots bring her out, and as he's allowed to hug her daughter, Batman and Katana attack. Alfred's even on a fucking zipline with a gun shooting the robots, as they take Ava away from Manhunter and bring out more robots. They end up destroying them, and as Paul's about to get his daughter back, the man has a bomb attached to her and says that she won't be free unless he hands himself in. He ends up doing so as he ends up not actually handing himself in, and instead he hacks into one of the robots and stops the truck. The episode then ends with Paul saying that he needs to get rid of all the clones, and Batman saying that he will protect Ava in the meantime, and we then see Ava with Bruce and Wayne Manor.
I gotta be honest, I got bored watching this episode.
I don't know, I just really don't find it interesting. You don't really care about any of the characters at all, which is unfortunate. It's interesting to bring Manhunters into this universe this way, but I just feel like it could have been done better. Hero starts with Anarchy and Katana in a bike chase as Batman comes out and stops him. When he does, the SCU surrounds them, as Batman and Katana fight their way out of their situation. They end up beating the SCU and leaving, where we then find out that the mayor resigned.
Fuck, well there goes CCH Pounder.
But as Harvey's watching the news report, Anarchy drops into his office and says that they need to change their plan. We see Bruce out with Ava, as he set up Tatsu with Dane, but it doesn't seem to be working out as they leave. Bruce and Ava then decide to go and dance, as men break in and approach Bruce Wayne. When they do, Deathstroke fucking comes in and breaks through the window and attacks the goons.
Well, that's a face I didn't expect to see in this show.
He takes them all out and leaves, as we find out from Harvey at a press conference that he's a part of the new Special Crimes Unit.
That's Dane, isn't it? I bet he's just using that name to cover up the fact that he's Slade Wilson. Bet I'm right.
Harvey then says that he's going to target Batman next, as Batman and Katana are trying to find out who he is. Batman then goes out to stop some men from doing an illegal business deal, and as some of the men shoot at them, Deathstroke comes in and takes them out. When he does, he fights them both, but ends up making a run for it. He then distracts Batman with a bomb underneath a worker, as he takes out Katana and plants a bomb. As Batman's approaching, he detonates the bomb, where Katana falls a few stories down, and Deathstroke escapes. Batman gives Katana to Ava at the hospital, where Batman knows that Dent doesn't have any connections to get someone like Deathstroke to work for him, as we see Harvey, Anarchy, and Deathstroke on a rooftop with each other. Deathstroke turns on them both by knocking out Anarchy and then taking Dent, and not long after that, Batman catches up to Anarchy. After fighting for a little, Anarchy explains that Deathstroke has Dent, as he could go save them or keep on fighting him, while Batman goes to find Deathstroke. Funny enough though, Deathstroke takes Dent on a gondola, where he explains that Dent's the bait to get Batman. He then hangs him off the bottom of the gondola, where Batman decides to do the unexpected by going into a news helicopter with them to get Deathstroke. It ends up working as he gets to Deathstroke, where he explains that he has two choices. Either Dent dies or he kills Deathstroke and Harvey lives, or they end up fighting. After fighting for a bit, Deathstroke presses the trigger to release Dent in 10 seconds, where Batman manages to hang Deathstroke on a rope and save Dent. As they're hanging, Deathstroke cuts his rope where Batman manages to glide away with Harvey. When Harvey's talking to Batman, Anarchy rings Dent as Batman puts his arguments right back in his face, and that's great. The episode ends with Bruce, Tatsu, and Alfred watching the news report on this, as Bruce seemingly thinks about the identity of Deathstroke.
Another surprisingly good episode.
When Anarchy showed up, I was definitely worried that he was going to be the main focus as a villain yet again. Oh, thank God he isn't. Instead, we get Deathstroke, and he's actually well done here, even though I think it's very obvious that it's going to be revealed to be Dane. I was also surprised to see that the animation looks really good at times, and I feel like that the second half of this season is animated better overall. Maybe they put most of the budget into the second half of this show. I really don't know. We start this off with Barbara talking to Batman as she helps him get into a safe to stop Croc and his goons from stealing the money. They fight for a bit until Croc knocks out Batman, where he makes a run for it as Katana puts a tracker on him. The tracker stopped as he smashed through a wall and got away, where Batman wants Barbara to get the CCTV footage of the train station that he escaped through. As she does, we get this cringy stuff where Barbara pretends to fight Croc, but as she does, Jim tells her that a boy's at the door. It's some guy named Creed as he ends up asking her out on a date, and Jim is, of course, overprotective. Batman and Katana get back to the Batcave to look at the CCTV footage, where they find out that Croc has been stealing some chemicals. Barbara then goes on a date, as we see Croc breaking into a train, where he's waiting for Batman to come and get him. Batman and Katana arrive as they have to chase after Croc, but when they do, they get lured to some bombs and get caught in some liquid stone. Croc then says that a train should be coming soon as they're stuck, but we then see Barbara and Creed out on their date as Jim gets 2 of his men to keep an eye on them. Batman rings Barbara saying that she needs to get into a secure place to help them reroute the trains, to hopefully give them enough time for Alfred to get them out. Barbara has no signal though, where she makes Creed take her to the 9th Street terminal, as we see Alfred run into Croc. He knocks him out and hears Barbara on his phone, where Croc goes to stop her, where we see her use Creed to distract one of the workers at the train station so she can reroute the trains. She ends up saving them and kisses Creed as he comes back, where Croc knocks him out and tries to get Barbara. Alfred then frees Batman and Katana as Barbara runs away from Croc. Eventually Croc gets her, and as he's about to eat her, Batman and Katana catch up and fight him. Eventually they beat Croc, as we see Barbara and Creed come back from their date, as Barbara cracks at Jim for having men follow him. Jim leaves them, as Creed ends up saying that he might give their date one more shot, because he got to meet Batman.
Yeah, I'm starting to notice that when we get a good episode, we start to go back to extremely average episodes.
I think you all know that I don't like Barbara as a character, and to see half of it revolve around her date wasn't very interesting. The only thing I actually like quite a bit is how Batman and Katana really need Barbara to help out in their situation by rerouting the trains not to hit them. Besides that, the episode's honestly pretty boring. Epitaph starts with Harvey giving a speech for his campaign, as Bruce talks to Dane. He asks Bruce for a favour where he asks him if his son can come with him on their boating trip on the weekend, as Bruce says yes. Harvey then brings Bruce up to talk, where some guy dressed up as Batman shoots Bruce. Hey yo, what the fuck? As he shoots Bruce, Tatsu comes out and fights him, and after being thrown away, this Batman disappears. Gordon's men go looking for Bruce, as we see Alfred and Tatsu doing the same thing, where Bruce brings her. They go back to the Batcave to find Bruce all bruised up, and looking extremely cold, as Alfred tries to help him. The both of them look at this Batman's moves, as Bruce gets up where he says that he isn't going to hospital, because if he does, the other Batman will know they're still alive and go after him again. We then see the Batman shoot at officers outside a store and blow up one of their cars, as he says that Gotham belongs to him now. Alfred and Tatsu give Bruce a private memorial to keep up the facade that he's dead, and when Gordon and Harvey talk to the press, Batman's in a car with a giant gun shooting at them. He ends up getting away, as we see that it was bait so Batman could go and get him, as the other Batman ends up flipping their car. They get away as it lights up in flames, where Batman finds out at the Batcave that the only other place they've seen that type of weapon is with Humpty. They end up finding out that this other Batman is 250 pounds and 6'4", where we see Barbara get access to his dad's files. We then go to Batman as he gets surrounded by the SCU, where he manages to knock them all out after he's in a smoke bomb. He goes into the castle as Amanda chasing after him, where he sees Dane. He ends up helping him out of the place as he knows that Bruce isn't dead, and he wants Batman to help find out who tried to kill him. As Batman's going with Dane, Barbara finds out who the other Batman is, as Batman already knows that the other Batman's name.
Oh. Well, I expected him to be Deathstroke, but guess I'm wrong.
The two of them fight, but eventually Dane makes a run for it, where Batman finds a lot of Stagg's weapons lying around. He then suits up in the fake suit where they fight again. Eventually, Batman chains up Dane where he finds out that he's working for Deathstroke. He was forced to do it because Deathstroke was holding his family hostage, where they fight again, but Batman ends up using his grapnel to shoot him away. Harvey then walks in asking where Dane is, but as he does, an explosion goes off, which presumably burns half of his face off, as they all get out just before the whole place blows up. In the news report later on, we find out that Dane died in the explosion, and that there's a high bounty on Batman's head, but the episode ends with Barbara finding out that the person in the Batsuit wasn't Dane, because that person doesn't exist?
What? Feels like a bit of a cop-out, but I could still possibly be right that he's Deathstroke.
Anyways, I like this episode. Nothing amazing at all, but yeah, the twist that Dane was the other Batman was pretty predictable, since who the hell else was it going to be? No one else that's been established in this universe fits the description of what Batman would be, besides him, so it's just predictable. I do like the ending though, where Deathstroke's already kind of won, by making the public think that Batman's a terrorist, and even getting a bounty on his head. I just wonder where that all will go. Twist starts as Harvey's in hospital, where someone else that's running for mayor named David is talking to him. He ends up leaving, where we see the key as he's given people fake identities, while Batman and Katana attack him and take out his men. Batman interrogates him to find out who Dane is, since all the information was fake and done by him. The person that paid for it used the name Slade Wilson, where they handcuff the key with shock cuffs that will shock him if he tries to pick them. Batman and Katana go back to the Batcave, where they find out that the letters of Slade Wilson can also make the name Dan Lislow, and okay, at least this isn't as bad as Tom Marvolo Riddle. Also, they're the same person. I fucking knew it. Even though he looks younger, Batman thinks that he puts a disguise on. When mentioning that though, Alfred mentions that Slade was a protege of his, but he was too reckless and unpredictable, so he had to cut him from the CIA. As Slade got cut from the CIA, he tried to kill Alfred but failed. So when Alfred left recently, he tried to track him down and make peace. He went to try and find him, but only found his dog tags from some soldiers as they tried to kill him, but they obviously failed. They then wonder that if he's alive, why would he go undercover and beat Dane? Well, they find out that Dane is 98.9% most likely to be Deathstroke. Batman then figures out that Dane knows that Bruce is alive because he knows that Bruce is Batman. They figure out that he wants to get back at Alfred, since he wants to prove that he's better than Alfred's current protege, which is Bruce. Deathstroke studied absolutely everything about him, and when he supposedly fell to his death, he knew that no one would connect him back to the other Batman. He then figures out that they need to do something to get back to him, where we see Harvey get out of bed as Anarchy approaches him to ask if they're able to finish what they started. Harvey says yes as he wants Batman dead, but he needs to tie up some loose ends first, and to do that, he and Anarchy decide to get someone to pull out of their mayoral campaign. Batman then decides to talk to the press, as Harvey and Anarchy go to David, as Harvey wants him to declare martial law, where the police, SCU, and Harvey are gonna find and kill Batman.
Shit, this is getting spicy.
We then see Batman on the news where he says that he'll get rid of anyone that stands in his way, where he's leaning into the personality that Deathstroke set up with the other Batman, as the news station is in on it as well. They're all waiting for them to come after him, and when they arrive, Harvey sends his men after Batman, where Gordon decides to argue with Harvey to call them off, but ends up quitting. Anarchy tells Harvey that all this was a setup, where Batman tells Katana that he knows that Deathstroke will show up. The men then move into the building as Batman and Katana take them out. Four of them land on the roof and make their way in, where Batman and Katana quickly take them all out. From there, the two of them get to the roof and find Harvey with two men, as one of them was Deathstroke in disguise as he knocks him out. Gordon lands in with a gun on Deathstroke, where he knocks him out with a grenade and goes for the helicopter. Batman checks in on Gordon as Katana goes for the plane, when they end up fighting, but as the helicopter's going down, Batman comes in to fight Deathstroke, where he manages to knock Katana out of the helicopter. He holds him back from saving her, and that's how the episode ends.
Well, now this is the best episode so far.
You know what? I was actually surprised that I liked this turn where Harvey starts to show more of his two-faced self in this episode, since he was a massive asshole before the accident. I think that it works since he's such a hateable character from the word go, and now he just starts to become a straight-up villain, and it's actually pretty good. With that too, I absolutely knew that I was right from the word go about Deathstroke. It was just too obvious. But the ending of this episode is really interesting. Let's find out how this show ends. The last episode of the show starts with Katana waking up on a rooftop as she goes to the wreckage of the helicopter to try and find Batman. She finds him as he gets up, where Deathstroke has his utility belt, and finds a device on it which shows him two different locations. When he arrives, he finds the Batmobile on Katana's bike, as he gets access to the Batmobile because of the belt, and ends up finding the location of the Batcave. Batman and Katana have to escape their building as men are trying to shoot at them, but they manage to do so by going through the vents. The Batmobile arrives at the Batcave with Deathstroke, as Deathstroke and Alfred fight. Batman and Katana go to their vehicles to find out that the Batmobile's gone, and when trying to find Alfred to alert him about it, Deathstroke ends up answering the phone saying that he knows where to find him. We then see Anarchy wake up Harvey, as they think that Batman's dead and they can easily take Gotham, and Harvey kills Anarchy.
It's time to fucking celebrate, boys. Let's go!
Anyways, Batman uses Katana's bike to go back to the Batcave, as Katana gets Barbara's help, and fuck! How isn't Anarchy dead?
Harvey must have fucking stormtrooper aim.
Harvey and Anarchy fight, and as Anarchy has Harvey at the side of the building, Gordon shoots the knife out of his hand, where Anarchy leaves. Harvey gets pissed at Gordon and starts to unravel his bandages as he's leaving, where Batman gets back to the manor. Batman asks where Alfred is, as we see Katana catch up with Barbara as she got a police vehicle, and Katana brought along Metamorpho and Man-Bat to help them. We see Batman make his way through the training room, but as he gets hurt by an explosion, he wakes up tied up next to Alfred in the Batcave. Deathstroke comes in as he cracks it at Alfred for replacing him, and Alfred puts him in his place. Deathstroke starts to punch Batman where he ends up getting off him and getting free, as Deathstroke says that he set up explosives everywhere in the Batcave that are going to go off in 16 minutes. What a random time for them to go off. They end up fighting, and after fighting for a bit, Deathstroke falls into the abyss, where Batman and Alfred try to open the door to the Batcave, which ends up working. When he does, Deathstroke comes back as Katana brings Barbara, Metamorpho, and Man-Bat in to help them. Batman makes them all defuse the bombs, as there's only less than 5 minutes left, where he goes after Deathstroke. Barbara ends up hacking into the detonator to find out where all the bombs are, as Batman finds Deathstroke again where they fired. Metamorpho and Man-Bat find them all, where Metamorpho uses his body to keep the explosions from hurting them all, as Batman beats Deathstroke. Batman tries to find out what he'll do with Deathstroke, since he'll tell the police department his secret identity, where Man-Bat and Metamorpho end up finding a way to wipe his memory of Bruce ever being Batman. It ended up working as he says that he isn't alone anymore, as the episode ends with Anarchy playing chess with pieces of him, Batman, Katana, as Batman Katana win.
Well, that sucks. Just as the show's getting good, it ends.
Yeah, it really does suck because I like this episode a lot as well. It's honestly almost as good as the last episode, but you know what? I want to get to the ranking of the show and talk about if it's any good and why it failed. Alright, so before I talk about my opinions on the series and if it's any good, let's rank every single episode of Beware the Batman from worst to best, starting with Unique, Secrets, Toxic, Allies, Instinct, Doppelganger, Attraction, Broken, Choices, Control, Hunted, Sacrifice, Tests, Nexus, Safe, Monsters, Epipath, Games, Family, Fall, Darkness, Hero, Reckoning, Animal, Alone, and finally the best episode to be where the Batman is Twist. So I honestly find the show to be quite interesting. But with that, I actually kind of enjoyed watching the show, even though a lot of it's kind of forgettable. The main problem I really have with this show is that for the first half of episodes they use very unknown villains and don't develop them well. I think that this kind of thing could work if they develop the characters really well, and if they also had a mix of unknown villains as well as some well-known villains such as like Scarecrow and stuff like that. For every Professor Pig and Magpie, throw in a Scarecrow and a Bane or something like that. I think that would have gone down a lot better, and it definitely did in later episodes of the show, but they started to bring in villains like Killer Croc and Deathstroke. They just didn't need to use obscure characters just to change them to the point where they're basically already one of the existing characters. And that couldn't be more evident with Magpie, as she's basically just Catwoman. On that point, the villains get treated like an absolute joke when the League of Assassins come in with Ra's. They literally just get their asses handed to them when he shows up in the show. Actually, there is another thing I want to mention. I actually like Deathstroke in the show. They surprisingly did his character well, even though the twist that Dame was Slade was extremely predictable. Early into the show, I felt like most of the episodes were extremely small in scale, where the stakes were extremely low and the world just felt really small. That did improve throughout the show, but even at the last episode, Gotham didn't really feel like a big city with villains lurking around every corner waiting to take over Gotham. Other Batman shows just did that kind of thing better. Also, I still don't know how I feel about Katana being Batman's sidekick in this show. On one hand, it's something different, but on the other, she isn't that interesting or complex as a character. Even then though, at least they gave Katana a lot to do, especially in the earlier episodes of the show. But with that, it kind of gets to the point where Batman gets sidelined for her stuff. Especially with the League, because Batman has no association with them at all. On that point, one last thing I want to mention is that we don't even hear anything about Bruce and Alfred's backstory until I believe the episode Fall, which is halfway through the show. I don't know how I didn't think about it until now, but yeah, they don't explain their backstory until about halfway through the show. On the topic of Alfred, I'm not a fan of how he is in this show. I like Alfred as being more of a father figure to Bruce and someone that guides him down the right path. That stuff really works for me with a character like Alfred. With that though, the show is good sometimes. Yeah, some of the best episodes of this show, such as Twist and Alone, are actually good episodes, but this show has a bunch of forgettable ones like Unique, Secrets, and Toxic. This show can be really inconsistent with its writing, especially early on where Bruce wants a sidekick, then doesn't, then does, then doesn't, etc, and it's honestly annoying. But why did this show fail? Well, I reckon that this show failed half because people weren't interested in a Batman show with a bunch of villains that absolutely no one knows. Look up any kind of promotional art for this show and you will see exactly why people didn't watch it. The show just didn't have anyone interesting in it that would make people want to watch this show, besides from maybe Batman. Even then, the animation style's honestly kind of bad, to where that would be the one reason that some people didn't watch the show. Around this time, most CG animated shows still look pretty rough, so if they wanted this to really work, they should have just kept it 2D animated. Especially if you compare this show style to any other Batman animated show before it, it just looks worse. 2D stands the test of time compared to the CG animation of the show, and I think they learnt their lesson since the last Batman animated show, until Batman Cape Crusader comes out, switched to a 2D animation style. Even then though, you really notice that the animation of the show gets much better in the second half, where they actually pull off some neat looking shots. With that though, Beware the Batman just kind of disappeared after the first 2 months of it being out on Cartoon Network. And if you do want to watch it, go give it a watch, but good luck getting a copy if you're not anywhere besides America.